Hey guys, it's Sheri here and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, hello. So today I'm doing a really requested video, and that is putting real flowers into resin bangles. So today I'm using a few products, and this is quite a simple way to do it. I am trying to keep it as simple as possible, but this video has been requested so much. So the items that you're going to need today are your real flowers, just like these little guys. So whatever color, whatever they are, but they need to be dried beforehand. Measuring jug, paddle pop stick to mix, your silicone mold or whatever shape or style that you want of your bangle. So I'm just using this one because I'm going to be creating a small little one today. Paper towel, alcohol spray, and then today I am using the Art Resin's resin. So let's get started. I've already got my 2 parts of resin out. So one part is your hardener and the other part is resin. And when I mix them together, it creates the chemical reaction which causes the resin to harden. So I've already got this pre-measured out. It's a 1:1 ratio resin. Because I'm only doing a bangle that's quite small, I actually don't need a lot of resin to do this. So my first step is, before I mix my resin, is I like to just give my mold a spray with alcohol. And then with some paper towel, I just give it a wipe out. Because these molds get used quite a lot, I need to just make sure that they've got no contaminants from other types of resin or anything that was in it beforehand before I do my bangle, because whatever's in this is going to set into my bangle. So if there's a bit of colour from a previous pour, that will set into the bangle, or if there's any little bits of oil or any other things, it will affect the way the resin sets. So I'm going to put that to one side while I mix my resin. I'm going to pour my first part in. Now, it doesn't matter whether A goes into B or B goes into A first. So whether your resin or your hardener goes in first, as long as you've got equal amounts of both. Now, the resin that I'm using today is Art Resin. I like using this resin because it's got a really good UV rating on it. I have used other resins before in the past that said they were UV resistant, and over time they have yellow. And because this is going to be partly clear, I need to make sure it doesn't yellow, because no one wants to buy an item and it looks great brand new, and then a few months of wearing it, suddenly the resin's gone to a yellow colour. So that is why I'm using the Art Resin today. So I've had 10 mils of each part, and now I'm just going to mix them up together. With mixing this resin, you want to go really slow and steady, and they say it takes around 3 minutes to have it thoroughly combined. You want to do it really steady because you don't want to whip air bubbles into this resin. So now that my resin is mixed, and as you can see it doesn't have many bubbles, if you do get bubbles, you always can use a heat gun to get those bubbles out. So I'm going to pour my resin in. So I've just put a little bit of resin in, and now I'm going to place my flowers in. You need to use only dried items in resin. Fresh flowers will rot over time. You can always use your paddle pop stick too to help push them into your mold. So I'm doing quite like a purple theme. And you also need to choose flowers that will be able to fit into your mold, that aren't going to poke out. Okay, so now I've poured my resin in. I'm just placing my flowers in. Now, any item that you want to put into resin has to be dry. You can't put fresh flowers in. They will slowly rot over time in your resin. So you just want to make sure every item that you place in is really dry. You can buy pre-dried flowers or you can dry them yourself. I do have 2 videos that I will add links to on how I like to dry flowers. I'm doing a really pretty little purple design, and I'm just breaking them off and adding them in really randomly. And you can use your paddle pop stick too to help just get them into the mold. You don't want them sticking out. Now I'm going to let this set for a bit before I do my second layer. If I add too much resin in, the flowers, because they're really light, are going to float up to the surface. So if I was to fill this all the way up, you would have bits of flowers floating up to the surface and popping out, and you wouldn't have anything on the bottom side of the mold where will be your top side when you do pull this out of your silicone mold. So you want to make sure that you get them to set first before you add your second layer, otherwise all your flowers will float up with the resin. So if you try to rush this process, you're going to end up with one part of your bangle full of flowers and the other part that's going to have not much in it. So I'm just going to let this cure. You can let it cure for about 2 to 3 hours before you do your second, where it's at that really nice gel stage, or you can wait the full 24 hours before you do your next pour. If you do everything at once, you're going to have that issue where flowers won't remain where you want them to remain and end up floating up out of where you want them to be. Okay, so I've waited about 3 hours and I'm going to just do my second layer. So I've already got my resin mixed up and I'm just going to go around and pour it. And I just want to get it to the top of my mold. So that way I've got less sanding to do when I pull this out. Okay guys, so I've left my bangle setting in my silicone mold for a good 24 hours. And now all I'm going to do is just peel it back. And the reason why you want to use a silicone mold when working with resin is because it's flexible and your resin also doesn't stick to the silicone, so you can use it again and again and again. So that's always a really good idea to use a silicone mold. So I just buy these ones off Amazon. I do have an Amazon store where I have all the molds that I purchase online. Your molds, you get around about 10 uses from them before they start to break down. So this mold is right on the edge of breaking down, and as you can see, it's sticking a little bit. But there is my beautiful flower bangle. All I need to do now is go around the edges and take off any excess resin that's sort of stuck. If you get it within that good 24-hour period, it will generally just pick off. And then all I've got to do with any little extra sharp bits is just sand back my bangle, which is a super simple process, which I use wet and dry sandpaper, and I use about 5 different grits. If you haven't sand resin before, I do recommend going and watching my video on how I sand resin. I will add the link. But that's pretty much it, and that's how you make it. There's next to no little bubbles. It looks so beautiful, and I think they're like just such a really beautiful, custom, one-of-a-kind jewelry piece. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you like my YouTube channel and you're new, please do subscribe, as it really does help me out. And if you really enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up, as that lets YouTube know to share this video to more people. And I'm super excited with how these have turned out. It's such a simple way, and you can preserve so many beautiful different flowers. You can also use so many other items in your resin bangles to create really one-of-a-kind custom pieces. And if you don't already, please do follow me on all of my other social media channels as well. And I do recommend checking out my video on how to sand resin, the correct way to do it, and I will add that at the end. Thank you guys.